Okay, so welcome back. What we're going to do is start off our first course with the Canapes a la Amarel. What I'm going to do is start off with making the shrimp butter because it's going to be the one that's going to need to be refrigerated overnight to set up and just set it in a piping bag and it'll be ready to go for tomorrow. So first we're just going to turn our oven on medium to medium high heat. We're going to start with a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. And we're going to let that come up to temp. All right, now that the oil's come up to temp, we're going to add the shallots in and also add in our garlic. I'm also going to start off with these to get a little aromatics going in and just give a little bit more flavor to the shrimp. You want to make sure you watch your heat too. Don't want to get it too hot so you start to burn your shallots and garlic, but you want it hot enough to make them translucent and release their aroma. Okay. Alright, it's not going to take long if you finely chop your shallots and garlic. Once you get to that stage, you throw in your shrimp with the shell on. And here we have a little bit smaller size of shrimp, so they're not going to take as long to cook. If you have a bigger shrimp, then you can just gauge until the flesh turns opaque and it's pink. Now the reason that we're leaving the shells on is because we want to keep that flavor that is in the shells and it harnesses all the good shrimp flavor that is inside. Now when we put it to the food processor to make the butter, the recipe says leave the shells on while you're processing it and then just run it through a sieve later. But I find that if we take the shells off, it saves you a step and you're not going to have a bunch of shell bits in your butter. And it'll make it easier to sift through. And when you're doing a major course like this, we're doing 11 courses, it's always good to have a handy little sous chef around to help you out with all your work and prepping along so that you're not bouncing back and forth and you can keep an eye on exactly what you're cooking and make sure you give it a full attention. Alright, it's looking good. Another sign if you never cooked shrimp before is that they'll start curling up. The shell or the tails will curl up to the heads, and that's also a good indicator that they're getting close to done. They'll also become more firm, and you really start to get that smell in the house, which is never a bad thing, but it's always good to have around. There we go. Looks good. I think just give these a couple toss a little bit more, and I think we should be done here. We're going to turn off our heat and just let it continue cooking in the remaining heat that's there. Place it aside. We're going to let that cool for a little bit, and as soon as it cools down, you use your best judgment. As soon as you can touch it, you can take off the shells. If you don't mind them being a little warm, then go ahead. But if you want to skip this step entirely, it's up to you. Just throw them right in your food processor, and you'll sieve out the shells later. But I'm going to peel these, so it's going to make it easier for me. Now that we have the shrimp has cooled down a little bit, I'm just going to go ahead and peel it. Simplest way I find, just grab the feet, I guess, or legs, just peel it around, and then pop off the tail. There you go. You have your little shrimp. I'm just going to throw them in here. And these are much smaller shrimps. You can use your jumbo shrimp, but these are just ones that we had on hand that were easier to get a hold of. If you do, you can't get all the shells off, that's perfectly fine because, again, you're going to run it through a sieve. So you won't have to worry about getting any shells in your butter. Okay. So now that we have all your shrimp peeled and put into the food processor, what you want to do now is just give it a quick pulse. There we go. And we're going to return your pan to the heat. And this is the part where you don't have to really worry about any shells, or if you're super picky, it's just going to get run through the sieve, so all the shells will be taken out, but it just makes it easier to push them through the sieve when there's not a whole bunch of shells blocking your way. So we're going to let that come back up. We're going to deglaze it with our brandy. It's just deglaze with the alcohol is just pretty much to bring up all the bits off the pan and concentrate those flavors. Now you do want to be careful because this may flame up on you if, I mean, that's the fun part of doing it to me personally, but just be warned, it may flame up, so keep your hair out of the way. Now when you're dealing with alcohol in the fire, you always want to remove it from the fire and put your alcohol in, just so in case if anything happens. Like I said, there would be a little flare up. There we go. And now we got all that goodness released from the pan. Alright, when you do the flare up is mainly reason like any high percentage of alcohol, I think 40% or above, it's gonna flare up on you because it just ignites on fire. So always make sure there's no kids around or towels hanging above you or your hair is not in the way. Alright. Now we got down.
Now the actual alcohol burns off, is that correct? So what we have now is just the flavor?
It's pretty much the flavor of the brandy, the shrimp, the garlic, and the shallots all concentrated into this pan. You just want to put that in there. Try to get as much as you can. There we go. All right. We're going to put the food processor back on. Get a couple pulses. Once that's combined, now we're going to add our other 4 ingredients. We have cream cheese, which you're going to throw in here. We have our butter, softened already. And both of those are softened room temperature. A little tomato paste. And this is the weird ingredient that I wasn't familiar with, but we're going to go with it anyway. It's just a little touch of vanilla. A little bit of vanilla in there. We're just going to throw our lid back on. And give it a couple good pulses. Alright, halfway through, take it off. You want to scrape the edges. Make sure you get all of that goodness mixed into the shrimp. And you want to let it go for a while just to get pretty much everything as smooth as possible so you're not going to have problems pushing it through the sieve later. Alright, that looks pretty good. Cool. So here we go, you have that, what is the beginnings of the shrimp butter. Looks pretty nice and creamy already. So now we're going to just push this through the sieve. Now depending how many guests you have, this should make about 20 canapes, but if you have more or less, it's easy enough just to divide or multiply to your amount of people. And depending how hungry they are, you may have to remind them that there is 11 courses, so they're not eating like 6 canapes at once, but I don't think that should be a problem. Now you just want to keep pressing against the bottom, because as it is pretty thick already, it's not going to go through easy. And so with the peeling of the shrimp shells, it's going to be easier, so you're not going to have a lot of stuff blocking your holes, but also it's going to take a little bit of work, but it's well worth it. Alright, now we're going to cook or saute the shrimp for the topping of the baguettes. A couple tablespoons in there. Now it's just going to be a real quick saute. We're just throwing in our shrimp. We have 10 peeled shrimp, peeled and deveined shrimp. And we're just going to glaze it with a little bit of lime juice and just give them a little bit of that citrus kick. Okay. Spread them all out so they get equal heat. Alright, we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. As you see, these don't take very long at all. And since we did use fresh local shrimp that we got, they're a little bit smaller than your usual shrimp, but so since we're not going to have very many guests, this is going to work out just fine for our party size. If you have more, feel free to go with the big jumbo shrimp. You can even go head on for even more flavor. But do whatever is going to be easier for you. And you don't want to overcook these or else they'll become rubbery and a little hard. You just want them just right. Even if you want to cook them about medium well, and then cut your heat off, and then just let the heat carry over, and then you should be at the perfect doneness for your shrimp. And now we're just going to add a little lime juice. Alright. And there you go. Here's going to be your sauteed shrimp that you're going to place on top of your butter and baguettes for your canapes a la Amarelle. So you see it's an easy appetizer to prepare. You can do it ahead of time so you're not worrying the day of the party.